Volodymyr Zelensky says fighting in Soledar continues. The Ukrainian president dismissing claims from Russia's Wagner group that it controls the area. Satellite imagery shows the destruction in Soledar before and after the intense fighting. It's located around 15 kilometers from the city of Bakhmut, which has become the focus of fighting in recent weeks.
The terrorist state and its propagandists are now trying to pretend that taking control of part of our city of Soledar, almost completely destroyed by the occupiers, is some kind of achievement for Russia. They will present this, and are already presenting it to their society so as to support mobilization and to give hope to those who are for the aggression. But the fighting continues. The Donetsk front is holding, and we are doing everything to strengthen Ukrainian defence without a break, even for one day. Our potential is growing.
We can now bring in our international affairs editor, Philip Turle. Good morning, Philip. What is really going on in Soledar, and who's telling the truth here?
We don't know, Delano, exactly what's going on there. It's very difficult to get any concrete information. I mean, it's even quite unclear what Moscow is saying about it. First of all, we had the Wagner group. They were saying that they had taken control of Soledar and that it was in their hands. That was denied pretty quickly by the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky. And then word coming out from the Kremlin that it was not sure that the town had fallen into the hands of the Russians, and not even any mention of the Wagner group at all. So for the time being, I think the safest bet is that parts of the town are in the hands of the Wagner group. That is why we've seen images of them in the salt mines, for example, holding bags of salt, saying that they had got hold of the town. But it's still not certain whether they are in control of all the town. Now, who are the Wagner group? They were created in 2014. Their head is Yevgeny Prigozhin. There are estimated to be about 50,000 mercenaries working for them in the war in Ukraine, and they're funded by Russia's GRU military intelligence. That's what we're led to believe, because there's no specific indication about where their funding comes from. So they're the ones who are in charge of what is going on there, or who appear to be in charge of what's going on there. It's important for the Russians to get hold of Soledar, because that's the final step before they get hold of Bakhmut. And Bakhmut is an important catch for the Russians, because they feel that if they've got that town, which is not a very big town, that will block Ukrainian forces from getting supply lines and will open up the way for them to move on to Kramatorsk. So all of the effort now is for the Russians to get hold, first of all, of Soledar and then of Bakhmut. For the moment, we still don't know exactly what is happening on the ground.
Okay, so we don't know what's happening on the ground. What we do know is that there's a change at the top over in Russia. We have a new general in charge of the war in Ukraine, the special military operation, as Russia is calling it, Valery Gerasimov, who's taken over from Sergei Surovikin. What's the significance of this change?
Well, I think there's a couple of things to say about this. The first one is that there appears to be a lot of jitters going on in Russian top command over what the best direction in the war in Ukraine is going to be. Now, the man behind me is Sergei Surovikin, who's the former Ukraine military commander. He was only named in November, but he hasn't come up with the goods. There's been no real advance of Russian forces, and he was there to oversee the handing back to the Ukrainians, or the recapture by the Ukrainians of Kharkiv, which was the only city that the Russians had managed to capture so far since the start of the invasion last February. So he's now been made deputy to this other man, who is the chief of staff, the top military general in Russia, whose name is Valery Gerasimov. I think we've got a picture of him as well. We can show you. There he is. He is now the man calling the shots. Now, there's something else going on here as well, and that is that there is a feeling, I think, within the military command that Vladimir Putin's time as the top commander, as the president of Russia, may suddenly slip, and that they need to be ready to take over. And the fact about Sergei Surovikin is that he's very close to the Wagner group and the Wagner leader. And that's looked down upon by the other military commanders in Russia, including Valery Gerasimov. So he's now in pole position to call the shots in Ukraine. But it's a poison chalice, Delano, because if he doesn't come up with the goods and show the Russian public something that they can see that's concrete, then his days as head of military command there may also be numbered.
Thank you very much for that, Philip. Philip Turle there.